Welcome to Soundtrack Your Life, a podcast about soundtracks, music, and movies. Each episode features a guest and focuses on a specific soundtrack and the personal stories connected to it. Now here's your host, Ryan Pack.
Welcome to Soundtrack Your Life. I am Ryan Pack. If you're a first-time listener of this podcast, we are very happy to have you. If you are a repeat listener, welcome back to the show. Before we get into the episode, I just wanted to give a quick plug for our website at soundtrackyourlife.net. Not only can you listen to the episodes there, you can also get a curated playlist of songs or bands that we mention on each episode. You can find our social media as well. You can contact us at soundtrackcast@gmail.com if you want to drop us a story or some comments. From our first episode on the movie Kids, my friend Dan actually sent me an email saying that he was actually living in LA at the time and had a friend who worked in the movie industry, and he got him tickets to the premiere of Kids at the New Art in Santa Monica. All he told me was that it was a modern-day Romeo and Juliet, but I knew Larry Clark was involved, so I knew it would be twisted or provocative. So here's the kicker. I was single at the time, so I asked the girl out on a date. And I assume it was the first date, and he said, holy hell, that was a rough ride home afterwards. So I'd like to thank my friend Dan for that story. And he also sent us samples, the actual songs that the Folk Implosion sampled for the soundtrack. So we'd like to give a shout out to my friend Dan. So check out soundtrackyourlife.net. Today we're going to talk about the movie Clueless, the 1995 Amy Heckerling directed film. And to talk about it, I've got Long Nguyen and Damon Gross, both from the band that I play in, Joylec Division. The band's all here. So
hey.
Thanks for being here, guys.
Hey,
thanks for having me.
So I just kind of want to set the scene of 1995. I think it's important in the discussion of this film to discuss what MTV looked like in 1995. So it's pre-TRL MTV, which means that they're playing a lot of music videos still. And not only just music videos, but a lot of classic rock bands are still relevant on MTV. So you have Neil Young making videos. You have Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, world premiering videos on MTV. Bruce Springsteen is still making videos. Like, they're not legacy acts yet, and they're using MTV to kind of keep that train going. And I think the band that might have benefited the most from MTV in 1995 or in the early 90s was Aerosmith. And a big part of their success was attributed to plucking Alicia Silverstone and having her star in their music videos. And it really skyrocketed, I feel like, both their careers at the time.
Yeah, who was that how Alicia Silverstone was discovered? How does a teenage Alicia Silverstone find her way into an Aerosmith video?
So she was actually, she had actually done some small parts in TV. So she was actually in the Wonder Years.
Oh, wow.
Obviously as a guest, she wasn't part of the main cast. And then she starred in a movie called The Crush, which was kind of an erotic thriller. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that film.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so after The Crush, Marty Kellner, who directed the Aerosmith video for Crying, he's the one that basically decided that Alicia Silverstone needed to be in this Aerosmith video, and I guess the rest is kind of history. She ended up starring in a total of 3, so there's Crying, Amazing, and Crazy. So there's a trilogy of videos she did. I know Liv Tyler was at least in one of those videos with her.
Yeah, I do. I remember that. It's Crying, it's Lying, and it's Crazin'. No, wait, Crying, Crazin', and Amazing.
Crazin'?
Crazin'. the snack treat craisins.
Yes,
No,
they made a song called Craisins.
Raisins, cranberries, dried cranberries, craisins.
So Amy Heckerling, who ended up directing Clueless, saw these music videos and decided that she would be perfect for the lead.
There was another side of MTV at this time. I know you brought up Liv Tyler. I remember like the flip side of MTV was like you had the classic rock, but then like the flip side, I saw Liv Tyler, I think it was on MTV, like going record shopping in New York with Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth. And that had to kind of be at this time, I'd say too. So I felt like we were like living in like these two worlds. Like the classic rock is like getting a lot of play, but at the same time, all of the underground artists are still making a play for that for that for that space as well.
So in 1995, I am a teenager. I had just moved to California like a year and a half before. So for me, Clueless was like really exciting because I'm living in Southern California and there's this movie coming out about teenagers in Southern California. So, it very much felt like it was directed at me. It had Alicia Silverstone from the Aerosmith videos, and I think she started doing those videos when she was like 15 or 16. So, she's not one of these like 30-year-olds playing a 17-year-old, like she's like a 19-year-old playing a 17-year-old. But yeah, for me, it felt like kind of this, it felt like everything checked all the boxes to be like, this is a movie for me. This is a movie about people like me.
So you saw it in the theater, I imagine.
Yeah, I saw it in a theater. I loved it. I wasn't the popular kid or the affluent kid, but it was still a movie about teenagers in Southern California, so it was quite a hoot for me to watch it.
Yeah, I saw it too. I know I'm a little older, and I wonder, Long, did you see Clueless in the theater?
No, I think I was in college. I think I was up at UC Santa Cruz. I may have seen it like a year after it had been released. It was like at a friend's house, and I think at first I was kind of like, "Oh, okay, this is gonna be interesting." But yeah, it turned out to be a great movie, and I didn't know about Amy Heckling, and I didn't know that she had directed Fast Time. So, but yeah, I loved it too. Of course, I was in a ska band in Orange County, so it was kind of a hoot to hear "Just a Girl" by No Doubt, because my old band used to play with them quite a bit back in the day. So actually, not that long ago, like in the early '90s. But yeah, it was a good movie.
Yeah, don't you have like some Tragic Kingdom stories? Like, didn't they use your keyboard or something on the recording of that?
They use our keyboard player as Hammond organ. So yeah, we Eric Stefani was a roommate, or actually dated our drummer's roommate. So yeah, we used to see Eric quite a bit.
What was your band's name?
The Nuckle Brothers.
So you're in college and Clueless comes out. You don't know that it exists. I mean, by this time, like No Doubt had probably already swept the nation.
I believe, yeah, they were, yes, starting to, yes.
Yeah, I think it was early enough in the Tragic Kingdom cycle where like they were starting to get played on the radio, but it wasn't like they weren't that album became huge, but it was just at the beginning, I think, when Clueless came out.
Yeah, actually, 1995 was kind of an interesting year for me. So the Nuckle Brothers, we were pretty popular Orange County ska bands. We played with all these bands that made it. Like No Doubt and Sublime. Trying to think some other
Say Ferris.
well, real big fish, say Ferris. They came. A couple of those guys came from our band. So when we broke up, 1995 was pretty much when the band broke up, and then people went off to college and art school and stuff. And so it was kind of bittersweet for me, like I had this, band that was pretty popular, and that was like my whole social life, for a good 3 years. And then now I'm like in college, I got to study. I was like a bio major, just it was quite the transition for me. And then just to hear like No Doubt, on the radio, or, say Ferris or whatever on the radio, and in movies, I was just like, oh man, I felt like I missed some, what I mean? I was like missing out, like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have broken up.
Oh, yeah, that sucks.
But yeah, it was an interesting year for me, for sure.
It seemed like all of these things were all coming together all at the same time. These the ska revival. I don't know, long would that be like the second wave or the third wave?
I think this was like the third wave.
So like third wave ska. I was in Southern California, so like I was already going to see these bands. Like I had seen No Doubt play already, and these other bands that were kind of in that scene, or at least it seemed to be, like Sublime. And
Yep.
I mean, would you call Sublime ska?
They had a little bit of ska, but they're mostly kind of that reggae kind of
Oh yeah.
rock reggae. But yeah, that's another band that we used to play with quite a bit too. Back in the day, in the early 90s. They were from Long Beach. We were from Huntington. But yeah, there's the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones was in the movie, and they're another ska band from the Boston area.
Yeah, they're from the East Coast.
Yeah.
That band, I the first time I heard of that band, I think it was like a Converse commercial or something like that.
Yeah, I think they were on a couple of commercials.
Like they're like all wearing like plaid, and then they have
Yeah.
like plaid Converse on, and I'm like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
What's kind of cool about the soundtrack is that even though it didn't have like a big hit, I feel like whoever picked the songs for it had like a pretty good grasp of like what was about to get big. Like I think, like even though Supergrass never really made it big in the States, I feel like the soundtrack supervisor knew like Britpop is going to be popular with young people, ska is going to get really big with young people. Like it's a good mix of what people, I feel like, in middle school and high school listened to at the time.
What were you listening to up in UC Santa Cruz in '95, Long?
Bob Dylan, a lot of stuff actually. I think I was really into that early '90s hip hop, like East Coast stuff. Well, and West Coast, but
So how about Coolio? Were you a big Coolio head?
no, not really. I was listening like Saphir and De La Soul, a lot more underground hip hop.
So the Coolio appears on Clueless soundtrack. I don't know. I think
That's
that
right. Rolling with the homies, right?
That's right. I feel like they use that song just for a punchline.
Yeah.
Well,
What?
well, isn't the biggest music punchline in the movie Radiohead though?
Is it really?
I vividly remember Fake Plastic Trees
Yeah.
plays basically whenever like Cher needs to talk to Josh, Paul Rudd's character. Like,
Yeah.
he's the college boy.
The grunge thinker or something. And so you have like the coffee house like jokes and the goatee and he's reading like I think he's reading like Nietzsche or something by the pool, and it's just silly.
That's right. Yeah, he.
But that Paul Rudd, you could see like that he was going to be a star.
So Capitol Records did the soundtrack, and that's why you see a lot of Capitol bands. Um, that I think that's part of the reason why Radiohead is on the soundtrack. Radiohead, I think at this point is still just known as the Creep Band.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, that's
So
right.
I think this is at the beginning of the Benz promo cycle. So they haven't even released High and Dry as a hit.
So is the Bends when they really start to take off?
I mean, I think OK Computer in America is when they really started to take off. I think.
Is that like Karma Police and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's still a few years away.
Yeah, so in America they released the Benz. The Benz does really well in like Europe, right? The Radiohead is able to conquer most of the world with the Benz, except America. I think "Fake Plastic Trees" was the first single. I don't think they gained any traction until they released "High and Dry" as a single, and I think that might have been like their third or fourth song off the Benz.
Yep.
In general. I got the soundtrack for Clueless because my sister was working at Capitol at the time. So she's working at Capitol Records. She sends me, I'm willing to take anything, free music. So she sends me the Clueless soundtrack, and we almost have like Life Almost Imitates Art. She's like, isn't the Radiohead song great? And I was like, it's kind of boring. And she's like, no, Radiohead is amazing. And I was like, I'm not really feeling this Fake Plastic Trees song. I ended up appreciating a lot more once she sent me a copy of the Benz and I got to listen to the whole album.
Yeah, I didn't get a Radiohead for a while too.
Yeah, same thing. I only knew them just as the band that sung that Creep song, so I didn't know they were much more than that song till years later.
I remember when they were really heavily promoting just whatever. What's the first album even called?
Pablo Honey,
and like they were on everything playing Creep. Like I saw them on the Arsenio Hall show playing Creep. It seemed like they were on everything playing.
I think
Creep.
they were on it. I think they were on MTV Spring Break playing Creep.
So yeah, It took, I think, until Kid A. I mean, Karma Police and all of those other ones were okay, I thought, but like, I don't know, but something about that record, Kid A, really appealed to me. I think it's all of they just were finally like on this, they sounded like they were on this level that people kept saying they were, but I didn't hear it yet.
How about you, Long? When did you really start getting into Radiohead?
I wouldn't say I got really into them, but I definitely appreciated them, more than the Creep song. But I saw them in concert. Gosh, I don't know when, maybe 10 years ago. I think it was at the Hollywood Bowl, maybe even longer. But I just thought they were really good. I wish they would jam out a little bit more, because maybe I was just feeling I was really into the Dead back then, I think. So, but yeah, no, yeah, I'd say about 10, 12 years ago was when I, because everyone was like, yeah, Radiohead. And so, yeah, I went to this concert, and saw them in concert, and yeah, they're amazing. Well, there's another, what's that? Tenderness is the General Public song.
Yeah.
Isn't it supposed to be on the soundtrack? Because I feel like it ended with Tenderness.
Yeah, that's the last song in the movie.
So
Not on the soundtrack.
yeah, it's. I thought it's. Yeah, so it's not on the soundtrack, right?
Yeah, it's not there.
Yeah, I don't see it.
So, what do you like? I mean, what's missing? Like this general public song's missing for some reason.
No Doubt's
What
missing.
about what is?
No Doubt.
Oh yeah, the No Doubt song's missing. Oh yeah, another one's missing. I think is "Girls Just Want to Have Fun" plays briefly.
Yeah, and I think there's a second Radiohead song that isn't on the soundtrack, My Iron Lung. I think there's a second Boston song as well.
Hmm. Yeah, there's just tons of music in this movie, and I think that like even when they're not playing music, there's a lot of music references. Like there's a character that makes reference to like where's my Cranberries CD or something, and
Right.
then later he's listening to Cranberries in the car, and like I mean it's just something you might miss if you weren't really paying attention, and stuff like that, which I appreciate from a movie that Amy Heckerling, another movie where there's a lot of music, iconography and other things going on when music isn't playing is Fast Times at Ridgemont High as well.
Oh, for sure. Like even if you go in, if you watch that film and you look at the bedrooms of some of the characters, I think Mike, the ticket scalper guy, has all these like Elvis Costello and like
Yep.
what other bands? I think he's got a Devo poster.
Yeah, there's also what I noticed was Suburban Lawns. Do you guys know this band?
Mm.
They're like a weird band. I think they were on Virgin Records. I had never heard of them. But a guy I knew, he had a video of like a maybe like an early MTV video or something, or like something that didn't quite make it to MTV of this band. So it's like a new wave band.
So there's something with Fast Times that I think Amy Heckerling also does in Clueless, and she uses music um to basically like differentiate who is cool and who is not. And so in Fast Times, that kid Ratner,
Yeah.
he wants to go on a date with Stacy, and then his buddy Mike, who's clearly like all talk, tells him, "Hey, let me give you this great plan." And one of the points in the plan is to play the first side of Led Zeppelin 4 in the car, which he does. And so Kashmir is blasting
Yeah.
while he's driving Stacy to dinner. And I feel like she kind of does that with Paul Rudd and Fake Plastic Trees.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Good parallel there.
Yeah, very good. Now, wasn't Tenderness also on the Fast Times?
Oof.
I
I
don't
don't remember
think so.
hearing that.
No? Okay.
I don't know. I think that some of the new wavy stuff. I mean, well, in general public, that's not new wave. What would you call that?
I was gonna say they were kind of like I don't. Yeah, I guess it'd be new wave. They had a little bit of ska to them, right, from the English beat.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um,
No, that can't be right because it was the Fast Times came out when 80.
I think
I
82.
think- it's got to be right before
Okay.
Valley Girl because you got Nicolas Cage
As Nicholas
Cage
Coppola.
as exact. Yeah, you noticed. I was looking for him this time. I knew he was in it, but I thought maybe he was a stoner guy. But did you spot him?
Yeah, he's at the football game.
Oh, you saw him at the football game? I saw him at I think he's working at the grill, or he's working behind the counter at American Burger as well.
Oh, I didn't catch that. I caught him at the football game where Forrest Whitaker is just laying waste to the other high school because he thinks they wrecked his car.
Oh yeah, what a lovely scene. I love that. Like there's the guy, he just like pulverizes some guy and he's just like left twitching on the ground. It's hilarious. I love
Well,
that Forrest Whitaker though. The skater dude character in Clueless, I don't know what his name is. He makes a reference to the Rolling Stones. And so in Fast Times, Spicoli, Sean Penn, he he has this whole bit about how Mick Jagger gave him a guitar pick and all of these things, but it's not in the movie. It's only in the edited for television movie. And I think it actually might be in the book too. But so Spicoli wants to spend his he what is it? Oh yeah. He has a dream sequence and he mentions the Rolling Stones. Anyway, this guy, the skater dude, I can't help but just call him the skater dude. I don't know. The skater dude, I'm sure his character has a name. He refers to like his parents liking the Rolling Stones. And then he likes Nine Inch Nails. And so I just feel like, yeah, but you're not the next Spicoli. I'm sorry. It's just there. It's I get what you're trying to do here, but no.
so did you guys know that Amy Heckerling originally? Well, first it wasn't going to be called Clueless. Amy Heckerling originally was writing a pilot for TV, and then it ended up turning into a movie, and then end of story. It became Clueless, but she went to 20th Century Fox. They told her to make something about teenagers again, and so she developed a pilot. And then at some point, her agent said, "This is too good for TV. You should make it into a movie." Did you guys know that Clueless is loosely based off of Jane Austen's novel Emma?
Huh.
No.
I'll have to ask Shannon about that. I'll have to ask my wife. I think she read that. I never read it. But did you know that on the subject, didn't they end up developing Clueless into a TV show after all?
Yes. They did it after the movie, a couple years after, I believe.
Funny how that worked out.
Was she the sole writer for the movie, or
Yeah, she wrote and directed it.
Okay.
So famously, Cameron Crowe wrote Fast Times based on his book, based on his research that he did with Rolling Stone, where he went undercover to high school. But I think that he carried over a lot of that like music references, and all of his movies were always like really music heavy as well.
So did you guys read any of his like the when he wrote for Rolling Stones or Cream or?
I read the Fast Times at Ridgemont High book.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, it's out of print, or at least it was when I found a copy of it, like a used bookstore. But that's the only thing of his I've ever read. But I would be interested in looking at some of that stuff because Almost Famous, obviously, deals with that.
Yeah. I mean, he was like 15 or something when he, was writing for the Rolling Stones.
Well, when Clueless was being developed as a TV show before the actual TV show, it was at one point called No Worries. And then at another time it was called I Was a Teenager.
So it was destined to be a satire no matter what.
Yeah, so when Amy Heckerling was told to do something about teenagers again, she agreed to do it only if she could like make fun of them.
Okay.
Like this time, because Fast Times is not a satire. Fast Times is a movie. I feel like trying to portray what the teenage experience is in a lot of different ways. Clueless is a satire of like these teenagers that really don't have any problems.
Mm-hmm. And Fast Times was developed into a television series as well.
I had no idea.
I'm not sure. Have you seen that long?
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, I think it was just called Fast Times. I'm not sure anybody, like, this is without doing any research. I just know it exists. I feel like maybe um, Ray Walston reprises his role as Mr. Hand.
You know, I saw him in I think it was like South Pacific. I think he played a character in in the movie. I was like, dude, I know this guy somewhere. I looked it up, and sure enough, yeah, it was Mr. Hand.
In what?
South Pacific, I think.
He was in South Pacific?
Yeah, just the
Gee
movie. Yeah.
whiz. Yeah, he was old, man. I always knew him. I know he's my favorite Martian, but I always knew him as Poop Deck Pappy from Popeye.
Oh
Did you guys ever see Robert Altman's Popeye?
no, I have not.
Oh man, I can't believe it. Long. You've got to see this movie, and it, like the whole soundtrack is written by Harry Nilsson.
Okay.
Ryan, you know the movie Punch Drunk Love, right? They use
Yeah, I've seen that.
He Needs Me
Right.
in that movie. Yeah, that's a good one. That's what when I was a kid, that's all I knew Ray Walston from was Poop Deck Pappy.
All right.
You know what? I was looking at the Fast Times soundtrack. It's mostly classic rock. I mean, it's like Eagles, like Joel
Yeah.
Walsh, Don Felder.
Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of
it's-
that stuff was written for the film, I think.
Yeah, and Amy Heckerling didn't want it that way. She wanted more of a new wave soundtrack because that's what young people were listening to, and I think that's why in the movie there's a lot of pushing back against like classic rock, like like Mike's trying to sell this girl like tickets to Cheap Trick, and he's like going through like I want you to want me, and he's quoting lyrics from Surrender, and she's just like super not interested.
Oh yeah. That's funny. So that's kind of like maybe like an inside joke.
Yeah, I think there's an interview where she's like, I wanted it to be like Talking Heads and like what was cool then, like not the Eagles.
Yeah, they got
or
also
Jackson Brown.
oh yeah, Somebody's Baby, Jackson Brown. Like you probably dig that one, Long, don't you?
Yeah, I like Jackson Brown.
And that song
I
showed
like
up
the
like a
Eagles
couple
too.
times in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eagles. I don't get it. I mean, I never got it. I don't get it. It's not for me. It's not my cup of tea.
I like
But
rock and I like country, so
but of course, I'd say that like this is. I mean, we were talking about Tom Petty in 1995. I think it was Last Dance with Mary Jane. But in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, they used American Girl, which was probably like 5 years old at this time.
Right.
But like one of the most I don't know, instantly recognizable classic Tom Petty tracks. I love this song.
Yeah, and
Who
it was
doesn't
probably
love
not overused at that point.
Not overused at this point, but also like I mean, do you think it's been overused, or is it just because like the Strokes ripped it off? Is that it feels like it's been overused at this point?
Well, I think now if you were to use it in a movie, it would just seem like on the nose.
True. Is that one of those? Has American Girl become one of those songs where like those songs we've talked about on other shows, like it's just obvious. It's Who Let the Dogs Out. I mean, it's not quite to that level, but they used Girls Just Want to Have Fun in Clueless. That was 25 years ago. They used it again in Valley Girl 2020. Is it just like that, like lazy to use American Girl anymore?
I don't think it's on the level of Girls Just Want to Have Fun, but I think that you almost would have to use it in a subversive way at this point.
Has it appeared in Stranger Things?
No, because it's not an 80s song.
Okay, but it's in an 80s movie.
I don't think Stranger Things has that nuance.
Okay,
Well, let's jump back to the Clueless soundtrack.
let's do that.
I think it has a pretty good feel for like what a young person in the 90s would listen to, except for like Cracker and Counting Crows. I'm not so sure about them.
Oh yeah, when I heard that Counting Crows, I was like, I still can't stand this band.
Same here.
I'm just like, this is. I still feel the same way that I did 25 years ago. Sorry, Counting Crows, but not for me. I didn't know it was the Beastie Boys in their punk style. When during the skateboarding scene is a Beastie Boys song. I don't know if it was for the movie or if it was like Pollywog Stew.
I think it came from. I think it was the. What was it? Like Mullet.
Mullet Head. It's from Ill Communication.
Yeah, it's from Ill. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I never owned Ill Communication. I didn't know that was on there. I think I skipped that one and I went from like Check Your Head to then the next one I had after that was Hello Nasty.
Okay.
Mullet Head is like a B-side from the Ill Communication sessions.
So it's that, but it's like that hardcore. It's like their hardcore
It's
style.
like they're punk. Yeah, they're
like New York hardcore or DC hardcore, like.
Yeah, they were big on like the Bad Brains.
Yeah, stuff like that. But like they're like it breaks. I guess what gives it away as being more of a 90s track instead of like an earlier one is that it gets into this breakdown that sounds very Rage Against the Machine. Like
Yeah.
You mentioned you grew up in Huntington Beach, so like how authentic do you think that like the Jeff Spicoli surfer dude character is?
Somewhat. I think somewhat. Yeah, they're definitely. That character. Growing up in Huntington in the late 80s, early 90s. But they're also this like skater, group too, where they're listening to, hardcore music. So that was another big scene in Orange County, during that time, early 90s was hardcore. The hardcore scene was pretty big.
What would have been like a Huntington Beach like hardcore band?
Oh, sheesh.
Sugar Ray.
Huntington Beach. Let's see. Hunger Farm was a band that was pretty big. Actually, this girl I knew, her brother Bill was in that band. Gosh, I'm just drawing a blank on all the big hardcore bands, but
would that Beastie Boys song like in Clueless like fit the bill though? Like what this is like what Capitol Records has on offer for hardcore?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that was more punk than hardcore, I think.
Sure, I mean it's Capitol Records, so
yeah.
I mean, Ryan, did you ever get to go inside Capitol Records building?
No, my sister worked in the New York branch.
So there's this film came out maybe a year after Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It was Nick Cage's starring role, or first starring role. It's called Valley Girl. It's an LA movie. Have you seen it, Long?
No, I have not, but I know about it.
Okay, so without getting too deep into it, we talked about that. There's been a recent remake of it, and so I watched the remake, and now I had just seen Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and I've seen it so many times, but I didn't make the connection. So there's the opening scene of Valley Girl 2020 uses the same opening song that Fast Times at Ridgemont High does, which is the Go-Go's We Got the Beat. Okay. And Valley Girl 83 opens with a montage of the mall. And so does Valley Girl 2020, and so does Fast Times at Ridgemont High. They all open with like a mall montage. But Valley Girl 2020, instead of using the song from Valley Girl 83, they use the song from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Huh. They're like playing homage to, or like actually in a way doing a remake of a completely different movie. Other than the one that they've named themselves after. And I only bring this up because Alicia Silverstone is in Valley Girl 2020 and Clueless. Uh-huh. And so it's just this big this big ball of intertwining references to each other that I'm still getting a handle on.
Damon's got this corkboard in his room where it looks like he's trying to find the Zodiac killer, but it's just about these movies all being intertwined together.
All right.
But Valley Girl 2020 also has like that cheesy epilogue of like where the characters are now, which also Fast Times at Ridgemont High has.
Yeah. And so now I know that like they opened and closed this remake of a different movie the same way that they opened and closed Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It's odd, right?
Yes, it's odd. And I can tell that you were furious that this movie in 2020 is like tainting these 80s movies that you hold so dearly to your heart. Anyways, thanks for coming on the podcast, Nguyen and Damon. You can check out Joy Division on SoundCloud, even though we haven't posted anything recently because of this pandemic. Check out the Soundtrack Your Life website and leave us a note if Clueless or Fast Times at Ridgemont High, if they've triggered any personal stories that you'd like to share with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us this week on Soundtrack Your Life. Make sure to visit our website, soundtrackyourlife.net, where you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too.